Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unfucking Your CX. I'm your host, Zack Hamilton. You know that. And really, quite frankly, don't care. What you care about is who's in the hot seat, what are they cringing about in the world of CX, or should I say the discipline of CX, and what is it that you can learn? And so I'm really excited for today. Mike and I have had a lot of great, just not just engagement, but we've also debated on LinkedIn a few times on just different topics. So, Mike, welcome to the hot seat, man.
Glad to be here, Zach. Really love what you're doing, and I love stirring things up. So hopefully, we'll do that today.
Well, here, this is the place. This is a
Yeah.
place where you can say what's ever on your mind, no filter, and I love stirring it up. So before we do that, typically these types of conversations, they need a safe space. They need a place where you feel comfortable enough where you don't have to hold back and you can stir it up. So for you, where's that place?
My mind. Let's get exotic, right? My mind is still in Spain. I was just back from a little musical tour, side gig of a drummer, and it was literally, you talk about hot seat. It was 100 Fahrenheit every day. All our shows were outside. So let's sweat. Let's open up sangria and maybe sit backstage under some palm trees.
Heck yeah, that sounds great. I'm curious though, favorite song to play as a drummer?
Oh my gosh, that's really an unfair question. It comes and goes. So anywhere from Rush to Jeff Lorber Fusion. Maybe a little. We did "Girl from Ipanema" while we were in Spain, so that
Wow,
was
yeah.
kind of jazzy. Yeah,
Very cool. I didn't know you were a drummer. That's pretty exciting. How many shows did you do while you're over there?
we did seven in about, I don't know, 9 days or so. And yeah, it was a beating. Lost a few pounds, but it was wonderful. People are super friendly. And I always find some parallels in that and navigating the CX world. As a drummer, you've got to kind of keep an eye on the rest of the group and the audience. And how do you kind of keep it all together and not make the show all about you, but still get to where you need to go?
Yeah, that's amazing. Plus, you know you're going to probably lose a stick or break a stick along the way.
Yeah, if you're jamming it, you will, sure.
Well, Mike, you've seen many different phases of customer experience. You've been in the trenches, been a practitioner, you've done the consulting thing, you've helped so many brands. So I'm sure there's more than one thing that when you get asked about or you hear about or maybe you read about it on LinkedIn, it makes you cringe. But what's that one topic right now that you're just cringing about the most?
Yeah, I feel old when people say, hey, you were a pioneer of doing CX before it even had a name and a playbook. And so maybe that informs me a little bit. But I tend to hear lately a lot of CX leaders saying, I don't have any authority or I don't have any ability to make things happen. That does totally make me cringe because you don't need authority, you need influence.
I am so with you on this. It's so interesting. I fell into that trap too. When I first started leading CX, it's interesting. When I was out in the retail stores, I guess I was doing CX without doing it. But when I first fell into that trap, one of the things I used to say when I first became the CX leader at Aaron's was, well, in order for me to get buy-in, I need authority and I need power. So who's going to give it to me? So why do you think this is so many folks are just waiting on the sidelines, waiting to be granted this power or authority?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bit of a righteous indignation you have to be a good CX leader and say, I see the way it needs to be and it's just not there and I'm going to go make it happen. You do need some negotiation skills and some influence skills and some relationship building skills, which we need to write the book on that because I haven't seen it yet. I think that's something that it's hard to teach, but it has to happen. And there's obviously some structural things you can do, but first and foremost, I think you've got to build those relationships, navigate outside your silos and start to build your posse of people who share that vision with you.
Yeah, how do you build your champions? I'll never forget it. It was very early on though when a mentor of mine just kind of slapped me around and said, "Look, CX is not about power. CX is about influence."
Yeah.
And at the time, he said, if you want to learn how to influence people and win through influencing, he pointed me to the first book of how to win friends through influence.
Yeah.
And although that book didn't teach me a lot, I'll be frank, it at least started to get me thinking about, okay, well, what is influence? And as a CX leader, I get it. I don't have KPI ownership. I don't have P&L authority. And now most
Yeah.
times, like, you don't even have a team, right? Like, you're lucky just to be a lone
Yeah.
CX survivor in a company. And so, Mike, when you think about this power dynamic and waiting on the sidelines, I'm curious, what do you think it's done to our discipline and our industry?
Yeah, I think, I was a little bit at lunch yesterday. We had a local meetup of CX pros here in the Dallas area. And I kind of was lamenting the loss of the brand. CX used to mean a certain thing, and now it means everything and nothing. Whether you run a call center or you run a retail store, you might have a CX title. And some of the people at lunch were like, that's okay, it's a bigger tent. I'm like, I don't know that it's okay because no CEO knows what that means anymore. And so how do I talk about something without clarity, and how do I align a group of people without some sort of idea of what we're talking about? So yeah, I don't know, maybe we do need a rebrand, but I think right now it's really hard to, and that may be part of the struggle, I think, for a lot of these CX folks is, where do I plant my flag, and how do I explain it to people?
Yeah, I just got in this debate on LinkedIn with a CX practitioner who, his piece was, look, I can help make change within the organization. I just need you to give me a seat at the table. And it goes back to this whole power mantra, right? Of, look, I need that seat at the table. Who's going to invite me there? And my feedback was, well, we've already been given a seat at the table. We just showed up empty-handed, right? I mean, at one
Yeah.
point they believed in customer experience. That's why they funded the current headcount that's within the
Yeah.
organization. They funded the tech stack that you're leveraging. Ultimately, as a discipline, didn't show up and deliver enough to the P&L or influence the
Yeah.
P&L enough to where they really said, hey, here's this seat. We want you to be part of this decision making. And so, Mike, when you think about your time just as a practitioner and now as a consultant, and you have a lot of influence with a lot of different kind of CX meetups and groups, how are you mentoring them? I guess this gets to the player tips. Like,
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
first player tip? How are you mentoring them on what is influence and how to gain it in your organization?
Yeah, I don't think I ever was given a seat at the table, quite honestly, at least early in my career, because people didn't know what CX was. It was sort of my aha moment as a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt that all these projects I was working on were about cost savings and efficiency, but they didn't take the customer into account. So I just started going out and getting customer insights and understanding needs and doing something we weren't doing. And pretty soon we're like making the ROI case for why do we need to be doing these things. And so I've kind of come up with and I hate to use the word framework because it sounds kind of academic, but how do I influence ROI in the organization? That's what C-suite people care about. And it's really down to three things. It's methods, mindsets, and structures. And the first one, when I say methods, we think about journey mapping and all of that. It's really about how do you create value in my mind. And so do we have a systematic way of going out and understanding the unmet needs of customers that nobody's meeting very well that we could uniquely meet? What's the methodology for that? And what do I do with it? How do I do product discovery and product market fit and all these things that maybe don't fit neatly into a CX department but have to get done for CX to really work? So that's kind of my first player tip is you've got to have the right methods, not just sort of the standard CX methods.
Yeah, I really, really I love a good framework because it just kind of, I'm one that likes to color outside of
Yeah.
the lines, if you can't tell. So I love a good framework just to help keep me focused here. But I'm curious, before we dive a little bit deeper into that,
Yeah.
I heard this the other day, and I'm curious your thoughts about Lean Six Sigma, where everyone's like, okay, that's just lawn. It's lived its life. It's lived its course. And I'm curious, do you think CX is kind of where that's at today, where it's lived its course?
Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to go back to TQM and quality circles and process reengineering even before Six Sigma. And Motorola was one of our customers when they kind of came up with Six Sigma. But all of it has kind of, I think, what I would say, maybe the label I would put all under is human-centered design or human-centered something or other. It's kind of trite, I guess, if you say, hey, I just want to be customer obsessed. But there's a set of tools out there. Remember my boss at Intuit said, a fool with a tool is still a fool. But if you use the right tools at the right time in the right place, and it's not linear, that's what I had to learn personally, is Six Sigma was very linear from the DMAIC to MAIC.
Yeah.
Customer experience and human-centered design, and where we are now in the economy is there are no rules anymore. Everything keeps changing. So I've got to assume I'm wrong until proven right by the market or the customer. I have to be scrappy but not crappy. I have to rapidly iterate and test things in the market and internally. I've got hypotheses and then I run experiments. And so I think there's just a different mindset maybe than the traditional, I can't make CX into double entry accounting. That thing's been around for 4,000 years. And it's codified. CX isn't there and doesn't need to be, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I think ultimately, here's what's been going on in my mind is I think there's not just one framework for CX that's going to work. I think there's ultimately going to be maybe a framework that might work for your organization.
Exactly.
Or, if you really just have a very tight like ICP or persona. But to your point, human behavior is just shifting at the speed of we're scrolling Instagram, right? Or short stories on YouTube. And so ultimately, I think part of where we just got locked into this is your VOC platform. And there's some incredible VOC platforms out there, but that's not your CX strategy.
Yeah, it's a rear view mirror indicator.
Yeah, and I think it gets confused. I think where we've gotten to here, because I love your human-centered design approach, and you can even take the principles of Lean Six Sigma. You can apply all of those, and They still work today because fundamentally it's about understanding the customer and understanding what's getting in the way of financial impact. And how do you design to where both win, the P&L wins and the customer wins?
Yeah.
But I think our discipline has just gotten so stuck in, well, my CX strategy is my VOC platform.
Yeah, the second we start becoming the survey department, it's over. That's not really the original vision of CX. And I think the pillars of design and delivery or design and execution have to go together. And I always over-index on design because so many times we're trying to optimize something a customer doesn't want, can't afford, somebody else does it better, and we aren't equipped. Did we really nail the right problem first? Begin with the problem, not the solution. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Fall in love with the customer and their need. And we tend to be just trying to whack-a-mole things that have already been given to us rather than asking the question. And in consulting, it's kind of hard because you might lose the gig, but it's like, do you even need this? Why are you building this thing? And who's going to buy it and how do you know? I worked with a biotech company in Europe and they had thought they had success with a mobile app in Germany and wanted to take it to 50 other countries. And the more we dug in, they didn't really even have success in Germany. And the more we talked to these other countries and their customers, the delivery method had to be totally different for each country. And so I think it's just, people get wound up in their KPIs and their OKRs and they think, I just got to go do this versus what is it that they need? Can we deliver it well? And what's the best way to do that?
That the mobile app just sparked this kind of PTSD when I was at Aaron's. It's at that time where it was like the mobile app craze. So, you really weren't a viable business if you didn't have a mobile app, right? And so I'll never forget, I got called into our CEO's office and he's like, have you been involved with the mobile app? And I'm like, no, I know there's a team working on it, but quite frankly, I haven't been involved. I'm curious just why. And he's like, we've already spent almost 6 months with an outside consulting firm. We've soft launched it and we can get any customers to leverage it. And I'm like, okay, let me go dig in. And the first thing, Mike, that they designed the app for was just an extension of our leasing arm online. So we launched this quick little ad hoc survey and we asked our customers, hey, if we had a mobile app, what would you use it for? The number one thing was just easier access to make my lease payment. Then it was basically manage my account, ask for service if I need help, whatever that is. The third thing was shopping.
Yeah.
And so we had to basically redesign, rebuild the app. And then once it was launched, number one for payments, now 70% of all of Aaron's payments come in digitally, whether that's through the app, online, or automatic payments. But it goes back to your point. No one asked the customer. They weren't solving the
But
problem.
what they did do is they made an assumption, and that's the thing that maybe this would be another podcast, but another thing that is cringeworthy is what assumptions have we made before we go invest a lot of time and money, and have we de-risked those assumptions, and have we stack ranked them? And the question you should always ask is, what must be true for my solution, my idea, to meet the customer's need? And they have to be able to download the app, and they have to be able to find something they're going to do with it, and it's got to be easy. And until you can prove all those things are true, those assumptions, don't go waste a lot of money. You can build prototypes, mock-ups, test it in a really quick, small scale way, and not get into this idea of we've got to go big and we've got to go now. And it's happening again with AI and with chatbots. Everybody thinks you need a chatbot, and it's almost comical now. I'm a cyclist, so I get out on the road and use Strava to measure my rides, and now they've got a little chatbot thing on there, and I'm like, really? There's no use case for me right now. Maybe there will be, and it's great to experiment, but is it just checking the box so your investors are like, oh, you've got this AI thing?
Yeah, I saw it pop up on mine as well. If we think about kind of going back now to this influence piece, because it's the power versus the influence struggle, and I'm with you. It's all about influence. You have to win through influence. What's player tip number 2?
I'd say mindsets, and that sounds really soft and squishy, but when I was at Intuit, literally you could get fired for not living out the mindsets at the company. 50% of our performance review was on measurable behaviors, and 50 was on our business outcomes or our goals. And so we literally had something called a leadership success profile at every level of the company that defined behaviors, observable behaviors, tied to our values or our mindsets. And so those things should be non-negotiable. I think it was Reid Hoffman came and talked to us once LinkedIn blew up and said, I wish I had codified our company values early on like Intuit did, because now I've hired all these people from different places that don't share those values. They behave in a lot of different ways, and I'm having to go back and clean all that up now. And so I think we get so myopic sometimes about it's all about shareholder value and growth and business, but we forget the how. And the how is alignment. It's do we all believe and act and think about the same things in such a way that help us deliver value to customers. That doesn't mean we're not diverse in thought. It just means that there's some shared values and some shared synergy around it. So what are those things, and what should you move from and to? What are the toxic behaviors that are preventing you from delivering awesome experiences that you would like to change? And then how do you get there? And then how do you measure that just like you would any other business outcome?
I love this mindset piece because although it might seem to be soft and fluffy, I think it's probably the most important aspect of our role, right? Because ultimately, a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of blowback around all you care about is the P&L. Because that's what I talk a lot about is about business impact. And it's like, no, like, look, I love the human experience. I love connecting with people. I love connecting. I love to do that surprise and delight. Like all of those things that we love to do is CX, that we believe CX is. But ultimately, I have to be that translator to the C-suite. If I want to get anything funded, I have to show that that specific strategy, whatever it's going to be, is going to deliver back to shareholder value. Because ultimately, the CEO is the one writing the check, and his or her number one fiduciary responsibility is to the shareholders. And I'll never forget the mindset piece. When I first was at Aaron's, I was out in operations, and I grew up in operations. And they asked, at that point, Aaron's was just kind of like this online catalog. And if you wanted to rent a TV, you'd fill out this web lead, and we shifted, we routed it to the store.
Yeah.
And the CEO asked me to move to Atlanta and help start the e-commerce team. And I'm like, I've never done e-commerce. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. And he said, Zach, you got to shift your mindset. He's like, this is a 60-year-old business. We're going to fundamentally change the way that we do business for our customers and with our customers. Yeah. And this is about change. And when we fundamentally change the business, I need someone who the field, our 1,800 stores, is going to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately you. And so you're that seller of change. You're that change management leader.
Yeah.
It's not the e-commerce leader. You're the seller of change to the field.
Yeah.
And until I had that conversation, Mike, I was like, okay, I totally get it. It's such a mindset thing.
Well, and the way I think about it is mindsets beget behaviors and behaviors beget outcomes. And so many companies and leaders start with outcomes, and that's all there is, and say, go get me this, whatever it is, sales goal or reduction in whatever. They don't think about how do you do that? What are the behaviors? And then very rarely do they get all the way upstream to mindset. And that's where you see companies that are hard to beat, the Apples or the Chick-fil-A's or the Ritz-Carltons with these legendary cultures. A lot of that gets started with mindset.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think even now for not just CX for today, but whatever CX is going to be in the future, it is going to start with the mindset of what worked 10 years ago is not going to work 10 years from now. Everything has shifted. And how do we shift the mindset? Mike, what's your third player tip?
Yeah, so this would be really around structure. So methods, mindsets, and structures. And when I talk about structure, this starts to get at accountability and alignment with goals. And so does you as a CX person, are you on the hook for the same goals that your product managers are on, your operations managers? And are you working together towards those goals or not? And it's kind of rare, right? I've been in organizations where that was true and not true. And the ability for me to pull together a cross-functional group of leaders when we all shared similar outcome goals was so much easier. So you can start with methods and you can start with mindsets, but ultimately you have to get to some structure to say, hey, we're all rowing in the same direction here. I remember my aunt when I was young had a sailboat up in Wisconsin, and we went out sailing and zipped down the lake really fast, but to come back, we had to tack left and right into the wind. And the only way we got back to where we started was to see that outcome or see that milestone. And so many CX teams aren't connected to that. And so to go out and build that cross-functional group, your posse of like-minded believers, ultimately you want to get to having shared performance goals, shared compensation goals, bonus goals, all of those things. And that helps build operating mechanisms around the team. At Intuit, we literally, across every silo, once a quarter would go present together an outcome to the general manager and then say, are we on track or not budget-wise? We weren't fighting with each other for each other's budget. We were coming in together saying, we need more in marketing or we need more in support. And then annually together, we would come up with a strategy and ask for budget. And that's pretty rare, and it shouldn't be. That, to me, is the job of a CX person, is to be that air traffic controller and bring all those parties together. And so you're all headed off in the same direction.
That's such a great player tip to even end on, because I'll never forget when I went to one of my first prioritization sessions and I said, look, our NPS is being impacted. I'll never forget one of my cross-functional partners was like, look, if we don't hit your NPS goal this month, what's the impact to the P&L? And I was quiet.
Yeah.
And he said, great, guess what? If I don't hit this specific goal, it's about 1.2 million this quarter that we're going to lose on the P&L. And that was like the aha moment for me of, I have to have shared accountability.
Yeah.
If I don't have shared accountability, they're not going to take me serious.
Yeah.
So I had a shared accountability piece.
I had a similar moment after the mortgage meltdown. I was working at a bank and was a big call center and really was trying to push them to do some CX work. And finally, the leader of that operation said, Mike, you don't understand. 75% of my budget this year is tied to nothing but compliance. I have to put these things into place or we will be in trouble with the government. And so I quickly had to pivot my agenda to meet his. I'm like, okay, how do I help him get there quickly so that then we can do the things we need to do to shore up the customer experience?
Yeah, I love how you even said you had to pivot kind of your own strategy. I think too many times as CX folks, we put the blinders on and it's just straightforward ahead and we believe everyone's just going to get on the boat, when winning through influence is about helping your cross-functional partners achieve what they need to achieve to win. And then one of the last questions I had for someone was, when was the last time you helped a counterpart achieve their goal?
Love that.
And they couldn't answer.
Yeah, and did you even know what their goal was? Is a good question as well.
Well, it's just, I mean, that's a whole new podcast, right?
Yeah.
CX leaders even understanding what the lead and lag measures are within their organization. But Mike, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I could keep talking about this topic about influence, but if anyone else wants to go deeper with you on it, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can email me, Mike at thecustomerlab.com. Go to my website at thecustomerlab.com or find me on LinkedIn, Mike Kendall.
Well, Mike, it's been great. I really appreciate you coming to the hot seat. Please come back because we got some more topics.
Absolutely, yes.
But for now, thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks so much, Zach.